Thank you for joining me here on the last segment of today's show. And to wrap up today's show, we're going to go into some of my game picks for the start of the NFL regular season Week 2 games kicking off tonight between the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins. I gave my pick for the game tonight. I have the Dolphins winning tonight's game by a score of 30-20 over the Buffalo Bills. And now, to give you guys the rest of the games that I wanted to bring to you guys on today's show, not the full slate, because I frankly wouldn't have enough time to get through all of them. So we have 7 games here that I wanted to bring up here and just give my thoughts and split it up between today and tomorrow's show. So looking at the first game here that we have at the top left of your screen, we have the Colts taking on the Green Bay Packers, 1 p.m. there. No Jordan Love. We just finished talking about this game a little bit. So going over, quickly over it, if the Colts struggle with their passing game, the lack of consistency, not just deep shots down the field, but really putting together some well put together drives, using the run game a little bit more efficiently, then it could be a low scoring game if they don't improve the passing game a little bit more. Willis really worries me for the side of the Green Bay Packers because it's almost like taking away what makes this offense so great with having so many weapons, the variety of wide receivers that you can go to. If Malik Willis can't get them the ball, you become pretty one-dimensional in that aspect. So that's something that really has me concerned. But with that being said, Green Bay's running game with Josh Jacobs, maybe you could look to that a little bit more. It showed some flashes in Week 1 against the Philadelphia Eagles. You're going to need more in this game, obviously, but you look at who you're going up against. The Colts gave up a touchdown and 159 rushing yards to Joe Mixon last week, so you have some optimism there that you could do the same with Josh Jacobs to kind of limit the mistakes that maybe Malik Willis could make, so that's something else. Likewise, though, you look on the other side and what Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor can work with. Green Bay just gave up a big game to Saquon as well. So that's something else that the Colts can take advantage of as well. And the combination of being almost one-dimensional with the Packers and having the Colts kind of expect that going into this game, I think the Colts would barely win this game behind Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor and that run game. I like the chances that they have here. I think it'll be a big win for them. Anthony Richardson showed a lot of potential. I have the Colts winning in this game. Then moving down the line, we have the Steelers at the Denver Broncos. Bo Nix's home debut. Justin Fields should be getting the start again, like we said before, after a full weeks of practice. A great opportunity to take hold of that starting quarterback job. You expect Bo Nix to play better in his second game now, especially at home. He's a little bit more athletic, definitely more athletic and more mobile than the quarterback the Steelers had to deal with last week in Kirk Cousins. So from a perspective on the Steelers defense, that's something that you have to adjust to, be a little bit more disciplined with that as well. Then you have a top-tier level coach now in Sean Payton. Not to discredit Raheem Morris, but Sean Payton has been in the game for a lot longer. So, also, I just saw Mike Tomlin is 0-3 against Sean Payton in his career. All of those are with the New Orleans Saints and Drew Brees as well, obviously. So now with the Broncos, we'll see if Mike Tomlin can break that streak. And, it goes back into playing into that fact that experienced coaches going up against them is obviously a lot tougher. The run game for Denver wasn't really there, but their defense caused 2 safeties against the Seattle Seahawks. So it's a unit that is very underrated, the Steelers, and some of their questionable tackle positions should be aware of this fact, obviously, with Denver being a bit more underrated, like I said. And injuries are also something else to watch with this Broncos team. There was some positive news today that Garrett Bowles, their center, and Josh Reynolds were upgraded from not participating to limited, at least today, in their practice today. So that was something that was beneficial. But overall, I think the Steelers win with a couple of rushing touchdowns. They finally scored a touchdown in this season of the NFL, so I like the Steelers' chances here. I think they're more talented on the offensive side of the ball with both running backs, with their identity. I think they get finally into the end zone here and win this game. Then moving on to the next game, the Raiders and the Baltimore Ravens. Like I said before, the Ravens are 9-point favorites. They should handle their business here. The defense may have lost some of their punch from last year, but I think they're definitely good enough to handle Gardner Minshew and this Raiders offense based on what we saw last week. If they can't get the running game going, if Zamir White can't get anything going and they become one-dimensional against this Ravens team, they're just going to pin their ears back and get after Gardner Minshew, and it's not going to be good for anybody on Sunday for the Raiders if that is the case. And you have arguably the best running team versus the Raiders defense that gave up 135 yards to J.K. Dobbins last week. Not to discredit J.K. Dobbins, I love seeing that from him, but it's not a good sign when you have Derrick Henry coming in, Lamar Jackson as well. It's not a good picture. That's why I have Baltimore winning this game by a couple touchdowns at least at home in their home debut at M&T Bank Stadium. Then moving to the next column here, the Browns and the Jacksonville Jaguars, two former Clemson quarterbacks again. Disappointing offenses from both sides in week one. The loss, actually, recently of the Jaguars' top defensive back, Tyus Campbell. He was placed on IR just recently, if not today, then yesterday. He's going to be out for the next 4 weeks, which is crippling for this Jaguars defense, especially because their secondary and their next level of defense was their biggest concern for me with that unit, and their defensive line is great, but with Amari Cooper, with Jerry Jeudy, David Njoku's not going to play, so that makes it a little bit more even, but not as even as Tyus Campbell being out. I think that's going to be huge for the Jaguars defense in this game. Cleveland's defense should also hold up better against the Jaguars, right? You lose Calvin Ridley, you bring in Gabe Davis, Brian Thomas looked nice, but on the other side, you have Denzel Ward, who is going to take away one of them for sure, and that pass rush is going to get after Jacksonville as well, like we saw Miami do in week one. All of that, I'm expecting the Browns defense to kind of rebound after last week. I'm a little bit concerned if the tackles aren't back for the Cleveland Browns. You know, they weren't there in week one, and you saw how successful the Cowboys defense was with Eric Armstead, with Trayvon Walker on the opposite side, Jonathan Allen Hines also for the Jaguars. That could be a weak point that they could try to exploit, but ultimately, I don't think it'll be enough. I feel like Watson has to play better. It's hard to play worse than he did. So with that, I think Cleveland will win this game with a dominating display from their defense. Then moving down the line, the Jets play the Tennessee Titans as well. Back-to-back road games for them. What I saw on offense for the Jets wasn't bad at all. It just died off a little bit as we went on through the game. Sustainability, consistency is something that will build with this offense. I'm very confident in them and Aaron Rodgers. And Tennessee's defense played very well. They didn't give up any touchdowns, but complementing their defense with their offense, I think, is still a week away. I didn't really like how Will Levis played. And also, their defense played very well against a rookie quarterback making his first start at home. Now they're playing the complete opposite of that, right, in Aaron Rodgers. After another week of work, more reps for that offense, I think Rodgers and the Jets will win this game in a more balanced, complementary way. The Jets defense will play better, and with that, I think Will Levis will struggle again in this game. So I have the Jets winning in a very balanced, pretty convincing way at Tennessee. Then the last two games here, San Francisco at Minnesota. Darnold playing against his former team, hosting his former team, and Minnesota, an offense that looked very good, albeit against the Giants. But their defense is their best side of that team for New York. So going up against this Giants defense for Sam Darnold. It looked pretty well because that is the better side of their team. Darnold didn't look too bad also, executing on all of his throws, most of them. He did have an interception, but he did spread the ball around pretty well. The running game with Aaron Jones looked pretty impressive overall, and Aaron Jones, familiar with the Niners defense, played them in the playoffs last year, had a good game against them there, albeit with Green Bay. But overall, you look at San Francisco as well, arguably among the best teams in the NFL. I expect more from Brandon Ayuk this week, getting back more into the rhythm of things. Jordan Mason looked great. Will Christian McCaffrey play in this one? That is yet to be determined. The defensive line for San Francisco also impressed me as well. Minnesota will have to do a lot more than they had to do with the Giants defense to kind of negate the defense for the 49ers, but I feel like San Fran is just a little bit too much for them. It'll be headline, front page worthy news if Sam Darnold beats the 49ers. Minnesota beat them last year overall, but it was with Kirk Cousins, so there is some revenge there for the 49ers. I think they will get it this time. In a close game, however, I think the Minnesota Vikings will play them close. And then lastly, not too much to talk about. The Chargers were one of the pleasant surprises I saw in Week 1. I think that continues on in this game. The main reason being that the Chargers stayed true to what Jim Harbaugh wanted to be, a run-heavy team, defense-heavy team as well. J.K. Dobbins, we saw what he did to the Raiders defense in Week 1. Now you're playing a worse defense in the Panthers, who gave up nearly 50 points without Derek Brown in the middle of their defensive line. I think it's going to be more of the same for the Chargers. And also, the level of experience, going back to that point that I made, you have a first ever head coach in Dave Canales going up against a successful, experienced Jim Harbaugh. I think we're going to see the difference in that. So I have the Chargers winning pretty convincingly as well in this game, going to 2-0, surprising everybody who might not have thought the Chargers could have had a good year this year. They start the year 2-0, and that's going to do it for this half of my game picks. We're going to get to the rest of them tomorrow, but for right now, that is going to do it for today's show. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please remember to like, follow, and subscribe to the show, as well as following the network on all forms of social media. If you want to see more of the GSMC Chip Shot Football podcast, check out the network's both YouTube channels. There are 2 YouTube channels to catch a lot more content in a variety of different ways on this show around the NFL. And lastly, catch more of the live shows every weekday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We have one more to get to tomorrow to close out the week before we are fully integrated into Week 2 of the NFL. We're going to get to watching that Buffalo Bills game. We're going to talk about it a bit more tomorrow. But for right now, thank you for watching. I've been your host, Manny Maradiege. I'll see you guys back here again tomorrow.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to